Hey guys, welcome to Social Studies. Today we are going to be continuing our lessons about women's suffrage, which remember is not suffering. Those are different words. Suffrage would be the right to vote. So yesterday we had a short video giving us an overview about that, and today we're going to look at this article which is a little more in depth. Now, it is in Readworks. Readworks reads to us. That is just so great that it does all that awesome stuff. It helps us with words that may be unfamiliar. It pops them into blue. But I want to talk a little bit more about the questions because this can read to you. Remember, you should put your questions side by side so you look at the text and the questions. Hitting the little speaker bar will also have it read your answer choices to you if you're getting stuck on a word. Though we do want to start using that less and less as we get closer to 5th grade. If you need to focus line by line because you're looking for a certain keyword, you can hit the reading strip on the side. And as always, very important to put numbers on our paragraphs. So this is a little longer. It's got 11 paragraphs, but that's okay because I noticed that some of these paragraphs are really short. Like they're only 2 sentences, a couple of them. So that's not so bad. Let's focus on these questions like I originally said. Number 1 says, what did the 19th Amendment of the United States Constitution do? Well, that's a right there in the text kind of question. You find out what the 19th Amendment was, it's going to be right there. You've got your answer. As always, if you cannot find proof in the text, you're probably wrong. The text will always have your back if you are correct. Let's look at question 2. It says, the text describes a sequence of events leading to the passage of the 19th Amendment. What happened in 1919? Okay, so this part sounds a little confusing initially. It's describing a sequence of events. Remember, a sequence of events, it's just things that are happening. Sequences are when things happen in order. We wake up, we brush our teeth, we eat breakfast. That's a sequence right there. It's a fancy word, but it doesn't mean anything too outlandish. The really important part is this, the actual question. It says, what happened in 1919? This is kind of there to distract you. This is what it actually wants to know. So you need to go, I would maybe pop my reading strip, and I would look for 1919 and see what's going on if you don't remember off the top of your head. Now for number 3, it says, read the following sentences from the text. But in many states, as soon as women got married, a law called coverture made them totally dependent on their husbands. Coverture stated that the husband owned everything, even the money and the property the wife brought into the marriage and the money she earned herself by doing work. Okay, so let's break that down and let's talk about what that means. That means that if you were a girl, if you owned your own house and you got married, man, that wasn't your house anymore, that was your husband's. If you had a job, and let's say that you made, soap. Like that's your thing. You are a soap maker and you are really successful. You have your own little soap shop. Well, the money you earn from that, that's not yours anymore. That's your husband's. The husband literally owned everything. One of the few things that husbands did not own was jewelry. Women usually got to keep the jewelry that they came in to the marriage with, and that's actually why wedding rings are so sparkly. Because if something went wrong, it was so the woman could sell the ring if she absolutely needed to, because the husband would never own her wedding ring. So, aside from that interesting little tidbit, it's asking us to draw a conclusion about marriage in the 1800s. So, when we draw a conclusion, we look at what the text is telling me. What this text is telling me is that when a woman gets married in the 1800s, her husband owns everything. Her money, her property, anything. It's all his after they get married. So think about that and then look for an answer in here that is supported by the text. When you are doing questions like this, where it's got the quotes in it, What you want to do is look for the answer that is garbage. One of those answers is always way out there, super wrong. Toss that one out. Then you only have 3 choices. Try and eliminate so you only have 2 choices, because then you have a 50-50 shot of being correct. When we have 4 choices, we only have a 1 in 4 chance of being correct, which is not nearly as nice. Let's look at number 4. Why did women's work during the Civil War and World War I strengthen the argument that they should have the right to vote? So, to answer this question, you need to look back in the text. You need to find out, what did women do during the Civil War? What did women do during World War I? Once you found out what they did during the Civil War and World War I, now you have to decide why that was proof that they should be able to vote. So that means that you are going into your text and you're saying, aha, this is what women did during the Civil War and World War I. Well, this was a good thing / bad thing, whichever is correct. How did that strengthen or help prove that they should have the right to vote? That is what question 4 is asking you to do. Question 5 is a main idea. So when you are looking for main idea, and I noticed when we did PMA, this is one we need a little more practice on, so I want to make sure we have more main idea questions every time we read something, whether it's for social studies, science, or reading. We want to focus on this. Main ideas are what you would write in a 2-sentence summary. They are the most important things, and they talk about those things over and over and over. Those are main ideas. If it's really nifty, but they only mentioned it once, it is not a main idea. If it's mentioned once or twice, it might be a main idea. If they bring it up over and over and over and over again, that's the main idea. So, before you answer this question, before you look at the choices, whenever you see what is the main idea, think, the main idea of this passage is that it is impossible for frogs to rain from the sky. Clearly, that's not what we're reading about here. But in my example, I made up my own main idea for my passage. I'm going to look for the answer that's closest. So before you read the choices, just think to yourself, the main idea of this passage is, and then look for an answer that is close to what you believe the main idea to be. If you are not sure whether an answer is the main idea, go and check how many times they mention the topic in the text. If it's a bunch of times, you are probably right. If it's only a couple of times, we might want to look at that again. Let's look at 6. What is the purpose of the first paragraph in the text? Now, this is a slightly more complex question. We haven't had too many like this before. So sometimes paragraphs do something. Let's take a look at this first paragraph. I'm going to read it, and then we're going to think about why it might be here. Paragraph 1's over here. I'm going to highlight it just for the sake of reading. The United States Constitution is the document that sets out the rules about how the federal government in Washington, D.C., and the 50 state governments in the nation may govern. It sets out what powers the federal government has and what powers the states have. The federal government would be like the president guys. The states would be like Florida, Georgia, Alabama. That is the difference between those two things. One of the powers it gives every state is the right to decide how elections are conducted in the state and who gets to vote in that state. So paragraph 1 is definitely an informative paragraph. It's telling me a lot about the Constitution. In fact, this whole paragraph is talking about the Constitution. So I know that whatever my answer is going to have to do with the Constitution. Because, Constitution. And then this is every single sentence is about the Constitution. So there's only one choice, really, when it comes down to it. Okay, let me go and turn off this highlight real quick as we move on to number 7. Choose the answer that best completes the sentence below. Now, when you do these choose the answer ones, you need to plug and chug. You put in option A and read the sentence. Put in option B, read the sentence. When you do this, whisper read it to yourself out loud. You might feel a little crazy when you do it because why am I saying this sentence over and over again? Because that's the best way to figure out what word completes the sentence. It's to listen to how it sounds. We know when a sentence sounds a little crazy. And when that sentence sounds crazy, we also know that's not a good answer choice. So if I read this out loud and I'm like, wow, this sounds really silly, I know that can't be right. Sometimes when we just read things in our heads, things don't sound odd. So very quietly saying it to yourself out loud lets us catch any craziness that might be trying to sneak in there. Let's look at number 8. According to the text, how did men feel about giving women the right to vote? Man, this is such a beautiful sentence to use race, restate, answer, cite, explain. This is a beautiful question to restate and answer, cite, and explain. Please race to your answer because that's going to be a wonderful thing. Number 9, explain how women's rights were impacted by getting married in many states in the 1800s. Use information from the text to support your answer. Please race. Restate the question. Answer the question. Use the information from the text to prove your answer. This should be about 3 sentences for number 9. 3 to 4 sentences. 2 sentences is highly questionable. 1 sentence will not be sufficient to answer this. You need multiple sentences. Our final question says, imagine you are fighting for women's suffrage in the early 1900s. That means that you support giving women the right to vote. You are one of the people who says, hey, women should vote. What argument would you make to someone to convince him or her women should have the right to vote? Now, this can vary from person to person because every person will have a slightly different argument. However, make sure that you can back up your argument with proof. So you should not say, I believe women should have the right to vote because when women vote, the sky will turn to purple rainbows. There is no evidence from the text to support your answer. You want to find something in the text that proves that women are smart, women are capable, or that women deserve to vote. That is what it is asking for there. Okay, guys, I am going to wrap it up here. This is going to take you a minute. These are some intense questions, but this is an intense topic as well. It's a big deal. If you watch the video, this should be a little easier. I look forward to your beautiful answers that you restated, answered, cited, and explained.